Where the World Plays. DP World ILT20 is back with Season 4. Get ready for Season 4 of the DP World International League T20, the UAE's premier cricket and entertainment experience, live from December 2nd to January 4th across Dubai, Abu Dhabi and Sharjah cricket stadiums. Featuring 6 powerhouse franchise teams, including the Abu Dhabi Knight Riders, the Desert Vipers, the Dubai Capitals, the Gulf Giants, the MI Emirates and the Sharjah Warriors, the tournament promises to showcase the world's top T20 stars. Fans can enjoy enhanced matchday experiences at Dubai International Stadium, including the Sixes Lounge for premium hospitality and the Sixes Family Lounge with Santa's Grotto and festive activities. The all-new Christmas Wonderland will transform match days into holiday-themed festivals with live entertainment, food stalls, games, giveaways and attractions, while families in Abu Dhabi and Sharjah can visit Santa's Grotto for gifts and photos. The excitement builds further with daily raffle draws offering shopping vouchers and luxury staycations, plus a mega prize of 4 gold coins and a brand new Audi A3. Combining world-class cricket, family fun and festive celebration, DP World ILT20 Season 4 is the UAE's biggest winter celebration of sport and community. For tickets, use the link in the description and go to Virgin Megastore Tickets now. Hey, Jazz.
Hey, how you doing, brother?
Man, thank you so much for coming down. I know you're a super busy man. Welcome to Tasty Humans. And for everyone watching, please introduce yourself and what do you do?
Well, my name is Jasmar Ferguson. I go by Jazz. I am a 15-year professional basketball player and recently started a company here in Dubai as a mental performance coach and mentor to youth leaders and youth athletes.
Fantastic. Now, I've done some research on you and you've had an amazing career. But I wanted to sort of say, first off, what is your first ever sporting memory?
That's a great question. My first ever sporting memory is of me being about 7 years old on a basketball court and crying in a timeout about not getting the ball. My uncle was the coach, and he looked at me and said, "Well, what the heck are you crying for?" And I said to him, "They won't pass me the ball." And he looked at me and he said, "Well, go get the damn ball." From that day, I come out of the timeout, tears in my eyes. I go and I grab the ball. I go shoot a shot, and I never passed the ball again. I made the shot, never passed it again, and that is the first sports memory I had because I feel like it shaped my childhood as an athlete.
In what way?
Determination, and not feeling sorry for myself. I think when you feel sorry for yourself, you feel like everyone owes you something. Mm-hmm. Especially as a kid coming up in competitive sports. You learn very quickly that the most aggressive kid is usually labeled as the best. Mm-hmm. And then as you get older, you have to develop the talent, the skill, the work ethic, and the qualities of like playing on a team.
And whereabouts did you grow up?
Louisville, Kentucky. Moved around a lot with my younger brother. Had a very unstable family dynamic. This story that I just told actually happened in Mississippi, Starksville, Mississippi. Mm-hmm. We were living with my uncle at the time and lived there briefly, 2 years during our childhood, but grew up in Louisville, Kentucky for most of the time.
And if you would share, what was unstable about the family dynamic? Just a lot of moving or?
Well, I had a very young mother. She had me at 19 and my brother at 20. So, she was still a kid trying to figure life out. Mm-hmm. Not an uncommon thing in the environment that I grew up in. So she didn't have the means. She didn't really have, the mindset of being a parent, just trying to figure it out in impoverished neighborhoods and not having the resources. So it was unstable. We dealt with everything from evictions to change of custody and really character building things that happened very early in my life.
I wanted to ask because you grew up in the projects. Now, coming from the UK, I believe the correlation is housing estates. You know, I think we call it the same thing, which is social housing. And I wanted to ask, how difficult was it for you, friends in your community, do you think, for people to dream about actually getting out?
Well, the funny thing about when people understand what the projects is you don't understand the environment that you're growing up in. You don't understand how dangerous it is, what you're being exposed to, because everyone is in the same situation. So I think with all of the violence, crime, and drugs and sex that we were exposed to, you don't develop a level of awareness to where you are until you're about 15, 16 years old, and you understand that it's time to make a decision in life of which direction you want to go. And once I was able to make that decision, it was kind of difficult because I understood where I wanted to go in life, but I had a lot of peers that went.
This was part of my question, yeah. Was there a lot of people that were saying, nah, it's never going to happen? You know?
Absolutely. So my first experience, I think, of tragedy would be seeing one of my childhood friends be murdered, honestly. Not seeing him be murdered, but him dying at 13, 14 years old to violence. It was a very violent crime. And I also have one of my childhood friends that I was very close with early in his early 20s. He was paralyzed from gunshot wounds. And we had gone in separate directions for me to pursue my dreams through college basketball and beyond. And for him, he had just gone on a different path, and it was very hard to see. But you know, that's just being a product of the environment that we grew up in.
And so, from what age had you told yourself, you know, I'm getting out and it's going to be basketball?
14, 15 years old. And it was less about me wanting to get out. It was more about me being in love with the process of getting better in basketball, because my story was I was in love with the game before I was ever good at it. So I had great examples of players that were much better than me at the same age as me. I was a scrawny kid that didn't have
you're
a
not that tall.
I'm not that tall.
You're not that tall, you know.
And they had mustaches at that time, so there was a big measuring stick between me and some of my peers. So I started doing things like waking up in the morning before school, doing 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups. Once I started to see any little results, I became obsessed with that, and I started closing the gap. That measuring stick made me understand what I wanted to do with basketball.
And were your sort of early coaches and peers, were they saying, okay, if you work hard, you can do this? Or did you repeatedly hear, look, Jazz, you know, I know you want to play basketball, but to get to the top, you know, you're not built for this?
Not really, because I was never projected to be a great player. I never really verbalized so much about what I wanted to do within the sport. So I was genuinely just focused on getting better. I wanted to play varsity basketball as a freshman in high school. Where I'm from, that is something that is seen as where good players are, a starting point for good players. So I achieved that, and then I just very gradually got better. And I was still a late bloomer as I got to college basketball. Once I started to see the projections of me possibly being a pro, that was about halfway through my university career.
And how did that feel when it first started to sort of turn into something where this dream can come true?
I didn't really believe it at first because I had a college coach who started to really instill confidence in me in a way that I didn't really have in myself. I was an extremely hard worker, but I was just focused on being better on a daily basis. He helped me start seeing a big picture and helping me understand that you can make it to the NBA from here.
Yeah.
And when I started to believe that, I absolutely took everything from my mindset to my habits to a maximum capacity level.
How hard was it for you to accept you could get to the NBA? You know,
It was extremely hard because, to my knowledge, no one had ever done it from the level that I was playing at, which was not a Division I level, not even a Division III level. I played at a level called NAIA, which is like Division V. But at the rate that I developed, I was a little better than everyone else at that level at 21 years old.
And who are your basketball inspirations?
I would say Allen Iverson, Kobe Bryant, and one of my really good friends who was from the same city as me, two-time NBA champion, Rajon Rondo.
Fantastic. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 36.
36. Okay, yeah, I'm 13 years your senior. So I remember I played a lot of basketball as a kid. Like when I was at school, it was basketball and football. Obviously what you guys call soccer. Yeah. And what was it back in my day? It was Byron Scott. I'm going to make myself look stupid. Charles Barkley.
Yep.
Yep. And obviously Magic Johnson and stuff like this. And I just remember being fascinated with the game, like fast paced, fast moving, lots of skill, all action, you know, lots of high scoring games, because American sports like to have high scoring games.
Yes.
I think it's why soccer, football took so long to actually take hold, because they couldn't really grasp, what do you mean it's like 1-0? You know?
Absolutely.
You know? So what position were you playing in basketball?
So I've always played a dual position because I'm the size of a point guard, but I have the qualities of a shooting guard. So the point guard is usually the smallest player on the team. He's usually the organizer, the guy who has the highest IQ that runs the team. I have those qualities, but I've always been a guy who's been exceptional at scoring the basketball as well. So depending on the team and the role, I've had unique positions where I've played with a very big point guard and I've been the smaller shooting guard. So the dynamics of the team still look the same, but the roles are a bit exchanged. But I would say now that position is called a playmaker.
Okay.
Just you can have two guys like me on the floor because your team is more dangerous. And then you see guys like Steph Curry, Russell Westbrook, Ja Morant, who are essentially point guards by nature, but they score the ball.
So how much has, I wanted to ask very quickly as well with basketball, because how much has the game changed? You know, in the last, I saw, doing a little bit of research for this, I saw something which I couldn't quite believe, which was how it's all become about 3 points.
Yeah.
And that fouls and contact is being, like they were sort of critiquing the fact that the whistle's being blown for everything now.
Yes.
And it's just turning into 3 points, 3 points, 3 points, and it's almost become boring, which I thought was very unusual for a game like basketball.
Well, the game has changed, but I think it's because the level of physicality slowed down the game. When you talked about the speed of the game is played much faster, and the development of bigger players allows the game to look a little more boring from people who's not obsessed with the game, because the big guys can do everything that the smaller guys can do, and it looks like they're only shooting threes. But it's using skill set and creating advantages that just the other eras haven't seen before. It was more physical back in the day, but the game made an intentional decision to score even more. So eliminating the traditional big man and giving a guy like Victor Wembanyama the ball to bring up and use all of his skills and talents has actually made the game more exciting, in my opinion.
Okay. Now, you were also leading scorer for the university you were at. Was that correct?
Yes. So I'm the all-time leading scorer in the history of the school.
Still?
Still.
Nice.
So that's 15 years running. I actually had a couple guys that I was rooting for to break the record, but you have to be very, very consistent with your performance to be able to do that. I scored 2,000 points in 4 years, and I'm also the second all-time leading assist man, which means I wasn't only shooting, I was passing the ball as well.
Man, that's crazy. So tell me about when you came out of university and you were going to turn pro. Like, what happened with the NBA?
So I was a first-team All-American for the NAIA level, which means I was one of the top 5 players in America. Wow. My coach started getting calls about mid-season, my senior year of university, telling me that NBA scouts were coming to the games. 2 teams in particular, Indiana Pacers and Miami Heat. And at that time, the year that I was to be drafted, LeBron James went to the Miami Heat. They knew how they wanted to structure their team. They were looking for a smaller guard who could shoot threes. I fit that description. So they were at about 5 or 6 of my games. Ultimately, they determined that I was just not big enough or athletic enough to fit the NBA mold that they wanted. The guy they ended up taking, Norris Cole, who has had a EuroLeague career as well, he's a little bigger and was a lot more athletic than I was, but we had a lot of the same skill sets. So I also had a workout with the Indiana Pacers, who they like me, but I just don't have NBA size, which for me is very acceptable because there's no guys in the NBA that look like me.
I was going to ask, how did you take it? Like,
so I knew that it was a long shot anyway, but my focus started to turn to playing internationally. And my entire mindset going into getting a shot at being a pro was, all I need is one opportunity. If I don't make it, I can live with it because I know that I'm fully prepared to take advantage of any little opportunity that I get. And I actually felt like I was an NBA player once the time of opportunity came, because I was at the peak of my powers athletically, physically. I knew that I was a pro, just not at what capacity that was to be determined.
So where did you end up playing? Where did you go?
So I played briefly, very briefly, 2.5 months in Canada. They were starting a new league, and I started very well. I was the youngest guy in the league. I played 3 full regular season games, and then I got a contract offer from a team in Australia to come and play for the team who had won 1 game in the past 2 years combined.
Wow.
They were starting with a new coach, starting with a new vision, and this coach told me, if you cannot average 25 points, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds, I don't really need you. I need you to do what you did in college, but under my direction. I said, Coach, I'm prepared. I'm ready. Just take a chance on me. I got there. We had a meeting about expectations. The expectation was to win 8 games the entire season because they had not been competitive in the last...
How many games were in a season?
15 years. There was 35 games in the regular season. The goal was to win.
Expectation was quite low, yeah.
This is where my mindset started to become very relevant in my life. Raised my hand in the meeting. I said, Coach, no disrespect. I don't know the league, but I just won 4 championships at the university level, 4 years in a row. I want to at least make the playoffs. We are going to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Captain of the team stood up and said, mate,
yeah.
I love your confidence.
Yeah.
You don't know the league. We need to focus on being competitive. We bumped heads a little bit early in the season, but it was great, healthy disruption for our team because we won a couple very important games, teams that were winning by 50 and 60 against us the year before, excluding this team that we had, and we we won the championship.
The first season you were there?
As a rookie, the season that solidified my career as a professional, and I won MVP of the league, and that set the tone for my career.
I bet that felt good.
It was incredible, but I was used to winning. So I expected that, not understanding the impact that I had on the people around me because I was so young at that time. I knew that we were going to win. I was delusional. But my approach was so stern and so just on a level that other people wasn't. They didn't understand it until they started seeing the results like I saw at 14 years old.
Well, I think that there's a thing that happens in team sports where they get used to losing. You know, you get used to winning, you get used to losing, and then you see it all the time where I support a football team that has won quite a few things, but they'll go on a run and then they lose and suddenly you can't get it back, you know? And it sounds like you entered a team that had just got the mindset of, well, we always lose. Do you know what I mean?
It was definitely that, but I have to credit a lot to the coach because he brought a mentality of holding people accountable. He restructured a completely different team, and the expectation of the community was that we would just continue to lose. They loved the game, but they just didn't have a competitive team. The combination of that coach, the team that he structured, and the two leaders we had, myself and the guy who had been through all the hardships with the team, we were able to take my youth and his experience, clashing at times, but then using that to guide the team in a way where once we figured out how we meshed, it was a moving train.
Were you accepted into the team like with open arms, as they say, or was there resistance to, you know, an American guy coming over from only, you know, sort of to say didn't make the NBA, now you're in Canada, you get on a plane, you come over, you know, and you're all, we're going to win, we're going to do it. Did they sort of, was there resistance for you, like, you know?
Well, the only resistance really was doubt. Usually American players that come in as imports or foreigners, however they choose to describe, carry a lot of responsibility anyway. You're expected to come over, to play well, to perform, to do your job at a high level. And if not, you're expendable. We will go out and find a guy that can do the job that we expect them to do. We were not expected to win, though. And that was my attitude. That was my mentality. The other foreigner that we brought in was a guy who was just a worker and a guy who was capable of following my lead. And we fed very well off of each other. So we stirred the ship on a consistent basis. I would have to say, though, I didn't understand the weight of the responsibility I was carrying for that particular organization until I decided to leave after winning the championship.
So you were there just one season?
I was there one season, and I decided to go and play for the rivals the next season.
I bet you were popular.
It was devastating for the community, but I had to make a career choice. And this team had ties to a reputation of sending guys to Europe after playing on their team, which was a goal of mine. So they told me, listen, we'll pay you double what you earned. You'll have an opportunity to go play in Europe. If you have anything close to the season that you had as a rookie, you'll be in Europe next season.
How tough was it for you to make the announcement that you were going to join the rivals after bringing, because I think the first question I wanted to ask was sometimes you see also in sport where you say you didn't understand the weight, the responsibility. Is it one of these moments where you just wanted to play, you wanted to be successful, you didn't realize what was happening in everybody else's minds, that you were Jazz Ferguson, the fucking hero, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like that
yeah. So I actually understood the magnitude of the decision that I was making, because going in, I didn't understand what I was doing. But as we progressed through the season and winning the championship, I quickly understood the responsibility that I carried, but I had to have a hard conversation with the coach first. He was the guy that brought me to Australia. He was the guy that held me accountable on a daily basis, and I have the utmost respect for even to this day. He helped me change my game and start using my mind more, more so than just my talent. And the conversation I had with him, he told me, in life, you have to make a decision, and as a man, you have to live with that decision that you make.
100%.
Good luck. A very funny story about the way the community saw me. 5 games into winning, we had already won 5 times the amount of games that they had won the year before. There was an article that came out that said, "Jazzing it up."
Yeah.
The new star import is carrying us. Article, when they announced that I'm leaving, the day the music died. A direct play on my name and my game, and it stung. It hurt, but I understood.
Yeah. Because fans don't. It's the tribalism. It's the fact that
you belong to us.
Yeah, and I did want to ask you about what it's like being on the inside as a professional sportsman, where I think it's such an interesting thing that you gave so much to a team and created a moment that, you know, when a team goes from the bottom to the top and winning it, you know, you've given the fans a journey that they never even thought was even possible. You know, and as a fan, it's these moments where it's like, yeah, we've won 5 games, we've won 6 games, we've won 10 games. What do you think we're going to make? What do you think we could win? Do you know what I mean? And then it's that high pressure moment, like 5 games from the end, where it's like, could actually win, and then you do.
Yes.
And then you sign for the rivals.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a moment where fans, I think, need to step back sometimes and understand that there is a career happening here for somebody. And I think we struggle as sports fans to be able to see that it is a career, it is a job, and you got to make the most of it. And as you'll probably attest to, being a sportsman is a short career.
Absolutely. It's hard to process sometimes, because players have to do what's best for themselves.
Yeah.
And feeling a part of a community and a part of an organization that fully embraces you it's hard to leave that sometimes. I had this situation in Italy where I played on a team for 3 years, and we had some incredible highs. But when it was time to leave, it was a conversation where they were like, "Listen, we would love to keep you, but you don't fit the vision anymore, because we need to go younger. We need to cut the budget." And this is a place where I loved and adored, but it was just the business aspect that sometimes the player is going to disappoint the community, sometimes the club is going to disappoint the player. And that's just the nature of the business side of sports. But to speak to your point about how short careers are, I've been very fortunate to play 15 years.
Yeah.
And I've seen careers last 4 months. I've seen careers last 7 years, and I've seen guys not be able to go out on their own terms. So I feel very fortunate to have had, the ability to play so long and experience so many cultures and people and develop so many relationships, which is, I think, the most important thing of my career is the development of the relationships that I've created. And I'm really fortunate to have played so long.
No, 100%. I wanted to ask you, because you spoke about consistency and mindset, which I think are two. They are buzzwords of the now, but it's also a dying art form. Which, when you talk about your coaching and stuff like that, it's so important these days. From a team's game perspective, you're the type of player that wasn't tall enough, wasn't big enough, and had to train and practice a lot. What was it like for you, or maybe you haven't experienced this, being in a team where you have naturally gifted players that don't have to train very much, and then walk out on the court and they're really good? And how easy is it for you to be around players like that, you know? And how do they operate?
So, famous quote from Kevin Durant: hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. I have played with players. I would say 80% of the teams that I've played on, I have been the best player on the team, but I've not been the most talented player. I've probably been the most talented player on 0 of the teams that I've played on in 15 years. The funny thing about sports and the funny thing about being an athlete is the secret is there is no secret.
Okay.
Being consistent is hard. Being disciplined is even harder, because you can get to a level, especially in pro sports, where you can, if you're talented, you can have enough talent to have a comfortable life. You can make whatever you're comfortable making and be okay with doing that. The problem with that is there are guys that are hungry and that have ambition and that are willing to get up and do the extra work on the days that they don't feel like it. I'm that guy, which creates consistency. When you're disciplined in a sport, when you're willing to be the first guy to get to the arena and the last guy to leave, your level of consistency is just in the book of laws in sports is going to be much higher than a guy who's just naturally gifted and is going to do bare minimum.
And how was the mood with the teammates? Was there resentment towards these things, or, you know, the question is that it's all about resilience, you know, and in team sport there must be a lot of ego, a lot of competition. You know, I definitely wanted to ask you, how difficult is it to be a top professional basketball player and shut out the noise and, you know, the temptations and the adulation? And, you know, I've never experienced anything like it. I don't know what it's like to score a goal or and thousands of people scream. I want to tell you, I have no idea. And it's always a question I'd love to sit down, as I'm doing now for once, which is amazing, to sit down with a pro sportsman and say, how difficult is it to keep your head?
Well, it depends on mindset, honestly, because athletes in every sport are very fragile, very sensitive to criticism in particular. The best way that I can explain this to you is a story that I recently experienced just last season. I led the French championship in scoring, and I was always the first guy to the gym, the last guy to leave. After practice, I always did shooting routine. I make 200 shots after the training was finished. I had one kid who rebounded for me every single day. We were in an empty gym after practice, and he wanted to ask me this question for about 2 months. He finally built up the courage to do it. He rebounded one of my shots, and he asked me, he said, "You just scored 34 points in back-to-back games. Why are you still in here working like you had a bad game? Like, why are you still in here so diligent with your process?" And I told him, I'm not in love with the results. I'm in love with the process. The process is what I've always fed off of. And my mindset has always been what has built my career. If I ever lose that, I would not be good enough to play as a professional. Because again, even now with the level of consistency that I've had my entire career, I've never been the most talented player, but I've always had the strongest work ethic on just about every team I've played on.
Have you had moments in games where you go into the game knowing that your head's gone, you know, for whatever reason, where you're not feeling, and how did you manage to get through that? Because that kind of falls into that sort of statement of being able to perform when you're at your worst. And they say that the sign of a great team or a great sportsman is to play badly and win, you know. And
Absolutely.
please, I'd love to hear about, you know, playing badly but still winning and what's going on inside your...
So this piece about being resilient is very important, because if you allow the result to dictate your approach, when you lose, you're going to continue to lose. I was playing horribly at the beginning of last season because my mind wasn't fully focused on basketball for the first time in my career. My son was born, and that's all I could focus on for about the first 2 months of the season. So this time last year in France, I was playing horrible. Management had pulled me into the office and they said, hey, we need you to play better. And I told them, listen, I needed this time to make sure that my son was healthy, make sure my wife is good at home. I will change, like I will get back to the level that I've been playing for the last couple years. Immediately after having that conversation, I was able to start sleeping more, and we go on a 10-game win streak.
Okay.
And I become an even better version of who I was, because I never emotionally got attached to how bad I was playing. I just looked myself in the mirror and said, all right, let's lock in. Let's get back to who you were. Let's get back to getting to the gym an hour early and staying an hour late. Get back to the basics of your process. Mm-hmm. I've never been moved by scoring 40 points or scoring 0 points. That has never been, the result has never been what has got me out of bed. It's always been able to understand the level of focus that I can keep and the level of consistency that I can maintain throughout a full season. And that difficult time was what I relied on.
And do you think that having, it sounds like you in the team, you have a good culture with the leadership, with being able to actually say something like that without fear, you know, admitting that you need adjustment time, these things are happening, you're not suddenly just going to get, you know, dropped?
Yeah, so I think in that situation, I had been on the team for 2 years already. I performed at a very high level. I was the captain of the team, and I had earned a little bit of cachet of like at least being able to have a conversation without them feeling like, okay, we need to replace this guy. Mm-hmm. He's not who he was. I never had that fear because I knew that I wasn't completely obsessed with my process at that time. I was focused on something else for the first time in my life. Mm-hmm. And getting back to that, I had no doubt that I was going to, you know, get back to the level that I was. So sometimes it doesn't work out mm-hmm. that way, especially in this day and age and this day and climate. Like, guys need their mindsets nurtured and they need to feel understood. And me being a guy, an OG to mm-hmm. these young guys now, yeah. developing those relationships, I think what I do now has a lot of effectiveness towards today's athletes and being able to understand them and give them processes in how to deal with the resilience, rebuilding your confidence and consistency, and just being in love with the process more than the result.
And when was it that you decided to then create your coaching program? Because you have Reps with Jazz.
Yes.
What's the origin of this then?
The origin of Reps with Jazz is me understanding that my mindset, 2 or 3 years ago, I understood that my mindset was the catalyst for my entire career. And starting to think about transitioning out of the sport, the ball's going to stop bouncing at some point. I wanted to do something that I was passionate about. Athletes get lost in not knowing what to do when they finish playing their sport. Well, I was fortunate enough to really gain another passion while I was still playing. So I went back to school, got my certification,
Okay.
moved here, started my company, and I am genuinely in love with this company and what I can do and the potential that I have with my company and in the location that I am.
What made you come to Dubai?
My wife and I just started assessing what could be next for us. We're very open-minded people, and we understand that Dubai is the land of opportunity. She took a career opportunity here, and I understood that my niche, there was a gap that could be plugged here if I, went with the right approach. And that's why I'm here at the moment.
And so how does your process work? You're dealing with adults, children, everybody.
Yes. So I'm doing one-on-one coaching with adults. That's usually focused on confidence building, mental strengthening, helping people find goals towards clarity towards their goals, whether that be transitioning or looking for a promotion in your job. It varies. And I'm also looking to work with corporations, either sports teams or Fortune 500 companies where performance is needed in all aspects of life for, these companies to be driven into revenue and sales. So I'm looking to ultimately partner with companies to hire me on to be a mental performance coach, but also do a elite mentorship program for young athletes and young leaders. It's based around growth and development, life skills, and building up these young athletes who have potential to grow into athletes who have great habits, building resilience around wins and losses, battling social pressure. Social media is a very, very big part of the sports world now, and just helping people understand what it's like to work in teams at an effective level.
I know a few people that have coaching programs, and I won't name any names, but some of them have done some quite crazy careers, And I know that I had a coffee with one of them a few weeks ago, and he told me that he struggles with the fact that he's realized that it's very difficult for some of the clients or potential clients to actually relate to what he did for a living. Do you find that with your process? Is it difficult for people to understand the correlation between corporate business and professional sport?
I don't think it's such a difficult thing because the core principles are the same. I think approach, ambition, consistency, discipline. The people who want it the most are the most successful in business. Their process, there's no lazy people. There are no people who aren't ambitious that are just crushing it, especially in competitive places like Dubai.
Yeah.
You have to have core principles that are relatable to people in all walks of life. And I think I take my time to really understand the clients first. I don't need them to understand me as much as I need to understand them first.
Okay, that's cool.
And then I can implement the strategies and the skill sets that can be more relatable for them, because most coaches have different niches. With me focusing on mindset, it's important for me to understand who I'm dealing with and what is the best way to help them elevate.
Do you know, I come from like the old school world of everyone just works, work, And I wanted to ask you, what's your opinion of the term work-life balance? As an athlete who trained and trained and trained and trained, how do you view that term?
So that's an interesting question for me because I don't feel like I've ever had a job.
Okay, that's interesting.
What I've done as a career has been something that kids do for free. And if I never got
It's
paid,
a very good way of putting it. You know?
because that's the core basis of it. Because without my habits and without my passion for the game, I could have never done this. But if I never became a professional, I still would have been playing recreational basketball with whatever I was doing as a career. So the enjoyment that I always got as a kid, those bubbles that I got before a game, I have it now. Just thinking about it, if I ever lost that, I would have had to do something else anyway. But the work-life balance as an athlete, you have the entire day to maximize yourself because you're only required to work 4 hours a day. And that's if you're doing extra work. A training, which is bare minimum with the team, that's only 2 hours, 2.5 hours max.
But as a business coach, how would you translate work-life balance to somebody that's not an athlete? So as in, I'm an ex-director of food and beverage for hotels and stuff like this, and at my age, I've worked with people quite recently. If they watch this, they're going to know what I'm talking about, which is that constantly talk about work-life balance, and I'm like, and I'm not asking you to agree with you. I'm just saying, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like when I was your age, it was like 10, 12 hours a day, do anything for the cause, you know. And like you did say, and I do agree with this, that in order to achieve something, you've got to go after it. And again, it sounds like you have that statement of, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. But it's like I say, as a business coach and a professional athlete, teaching non-professional athletes, it's like, what are the biggest differences? You know, like I say, the work-life balance, I need time off, or is there part of you that just goes, dude, you know what I mean? Train, you need to train.
Yeah, it's a delicate situation because I try not to compare like me being an athlete to the people that I'm working with that have never been athletes, because it's a totally different dynamic. I try to really fully take in their perspective and help them get the most out of it. Work-life balance, if you have ambition, if you want to be the top of something, if you're in a competitive space, then work-life balance is going to be off scale, because to be the best at something or to be in the top 10 or 5 percentile, the people who are getting the best results are working the hardest.
Yeah.
Like that is something that I will always believe in because I've seen the results myself. If your ambition is just to be comfortable, then you can have a beautiful work-life balance. And being at the top of the top is not for everyone.
Yeah.
What I want to do is make sure everyone that I'm working with is fulfilling their potential and maximizing what they want to get out of themselves. If that happens within the process of working with me, that's my goal.
That's cool. Yeah, definitely. You mentioned social pressure and social media. And have you ever been on the receiving end of like really negative social media coming directly at you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You have a bad game, your job needs to be on the line.
How do you deal with that? Like, it's that thing where, you know, there are lots of sportsmen that get abused after games online. There are some people that would say, well, don't be on Instagram then, or don't be on Twitter, you know.
It's impossible.
And it's like, but you can't do that because you kind of, everyone has to be there now. It's kind of strange if you don't. But how do you deal with that type of criticism?
It's funny because players that have a lot of responsibility, you get praised when you do well. You get criticized when you play below your standard. What you have to do is not think you're the best player in the world when you do play well,
Oh,
and
that's cool. Yeah.
not fall into the criticism game, because it's some people's job to criticize you. That's why I've always focused on my process, my approach, because if you fall into what they're saying about you in the news clippings, you're going to have irrational views, and everything you do is depending on the result. it's very, very hard not to react to some of these things. But you have great examples of guys who have ups and downs and they don't say a word. The guys who do it at the highest level, Ronaldo, Messi, LeBron, Tom Brady. These guys, they don't always play the best that they could ever play. They've faced down moments in their career. They've been questioned whether they're too old, and they take it on the chin and they get back to,
and they just keep going. Yeah, they're incredible.
Their approach. So
when you coach kids, you know, the generations coming through, what do you think they need the most when it comes to confidence and resilience and motivation? Like, what are your techniques with them?
Number one thing about the younger generation is for them to feel understood and supported. If they feel like you understand them, they will listen to you, because we live in such a judgmental society because the kids don't do things the way that we did them. It's easier for us to say, oh, well, they're strange or they're weird or
Yeah,
or I can't connect with my child. And though some of these things may be true to the person who is distributing this criticism, well, sometimes we got to look in the mirror and understand that it's just a new day and age. Yeah. Some of these kids need to be nurtured in a way that we didn't, because that wasn't our culture. They have resources that grasp their attention. So we have to understand that relating to the kids first is a way for them to feel like you're interested. And not just trying to throw your old way of thinking, your old philosophies on them.
And I think the tough thing now, I mean, you know, me being Gen X and everything, is that it's really different. It's really different. You know, if you look at maybe your generation, my generation, our parents' generation, they're quite similar correlations. You know, I think the difference between you and I is probably social media.
Yep.
You know, if you would have been born in 89.
Yes.
Yeah. So then, yeah, teenagers, yeah, you would have been a teenager in 2004-05. Facebook starts coming along, and my generation were all like, oh, I can talk to my old schoolmates again. Yep. You know, you guys really immersed into it, you know, and then, of course, Instagram and everything else. But I think that the next generation coming through is they have a sort of a massively different interpretation, where they are given phones very, very early, and there's a lot of anxious and anxiety that we probably don't...
We don't register.
Yeah, we probably don't. As I was saying earlier about work-life balance, like the old school versions of us, what are you talking about? It's good work, you know. Yeah. I think one of the things about work-life balance I did actually want to say is that, you know, meeting somebody that has lived and breathed their dreams, is it's like people that complain about work-life balance are not enjoying their jobs. And like I say, they're not living in the world of, if I love what I do, I don't work a day in my life. Yeah. And maybe if people want really good work-life balance, it's look at what you're doing for work, not what you're doing for balance.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree with that. And to your point about the social media era, Facebook was started when I was 16.
Yeah.
So I was the first, like, cool kid era of like Facebook and seeing what Instagram turned into. And then I got older and I started seeing my nephew getting a phone at 7 years old and understanding how to operate an iPhone better than I did. Understanding that they are learning more rapid because of these technological devices, but there needs to be a balance with human interaction and developing life skills. And it's a very tedious kind of dynamic, but these kids that you want to have some good interaction with, you have to understand them. You got to meet them halfway at least. And maybe sometimes you got to meet them more over there, where they are.
Get them half, yeah.
Exactly, because what we went through and the experience that we live, they're not interested in.
No,
They're really
that's
not.
also true. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the one thing that stays true, I think, is sport. You know, with everything that's going on in the world, you know, with AI and this and everything, and all of this fears is going to take my job and everything else. I do think that the one thing that will survive is sport. I do think that the more people that are into sport and play sport and team sports and exercise and everything like that will get so much out of it. And I do think it's an industry that will 100% survive, because I just don't think we want to sit around, it's going to sound really stupid, but watching robots play sport, you know, which is actually, they had a robots Olympics, I think it was like 2 or 3 months ago. I saw that on YouTube and I was like, I don't want to swear, but I'm like, what the hell? What, you know, it just looked like the strangest thing. So I do think kids should be encouraged as much as possible to play sport, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Sports develop character. Sports helps you develop life skills that other dynamics just don't give you the ability to do. Human interaction, working in teams, building chemistry. These are things that sports are direct correlation to working in the corporate world, working in different spaces with people where you have to depend on someone else, and building resilience. How do you handle winning? How do you handle losing? How do you create a system for yourself? You're on a schedule, you have consistency. Sports is directly these things.
Yeah.
And then the aspect of competition is a whole other thing. I do not think a robot will ever be able to replace human emotion and human performance, because it controls the emotion of millions of people. And you get to see the emotion on a player's face.
Yeah,
you
definitely.
get to see the pain, the joy, the relief, people living up to expectations. A robot is expected to operate at a completely different capacity. So I think sports will definitely survive, and it will always be something that will gain the attention of millions of people.
I wanted to, because believe it or not, we're coming very close to the end. The time flies by. But I wanted to also ask you, in your opinion, do you think motivation builds confidence or discipline builds confidence?
Well, I think consistency, having the ability to be consistent, builds confidence. But if you are depending on motivation to be consistent, you will never be consistent.
Yeah.
Because consistency, the basis of being consistent is being able to do things for a long time. And without discipline, you can't do that. Discipline means doing the job consistently, regardless of how you feel. So on the days where you're not motivated, when you don't feel like getting up and doing whatever it is that you need to do to improve,
Of which there'll be many.
it's the hardest thing to do, is to be disciplined and to be motivated, especially in sports, because you are constantly tired. You're constantly at a point of emotional strain, depending on wins and losses and travel. And if you want to be consistent, you have to be disciplined. You cannot rely on motivation.
And to be fair, your story of someone that, like you say, has come out the projects, gone into university, gone into a professional sport when you were told you were never built to do it, gone to Canada, flown to Australia. For me in this entire conversation, the maddest thing is like winning the championship in the first season and then going to the rivals is just, it's almost like one of those things where you could almost say to everybody, everyone should experience that, just to really build something inside of you where you can get hit. Do you know what I mean? Because Christ only knows what that must have felt like. What's coming up for you now? Like, you said when you were coming in, I actually said ex-player, and you were like, no, like, I'm still there. So what is the next few years looking like for you now?
So at the moment, I'm in a place where I'm still a current player by label because I'm still training, and I could decide to sign to a team if I so choose. The phone is ringing. I've decided to focus on my business, being a mental performance coach, making an imprint here in the UAE and around this region. But I haven't absolutely hung the shoes up. What I'm focusing on doing is doing workshops, building relationships with corporations and sports teams, and impacting the youth. I think this is something that is going to allow me to be a staple here. And I'm also looking to do just speaking engagements, confidence building, kind of experiments or programs that can be effective for people, young, old, corporate, freelance. I'm doing a lot of things that just could turn into anything. But building Reps with Jazz as a company is very, very important to me at the moment. And if you see me signed to a team, I'm still working on the company.
You strike me as a person that's just not afraid to make a big decision.
Absolutely not.
Leave a country, leave a team, not listen to the noise. It's a fascinating story. Well, look, we have come to an end. It's been great. I really appreciate you coming on. It's been a real pleasure to speak to you. As I ask all Tasty Humans guests, out of everything that you've done, if there's one statement, one line that you would sort of give as advice to anybody in life, sport, business, whatever that may be, what would it be?
Reps remove all doubt. Be
Nice.
consistent. Wake up and do what you are supposed to do. Put in the work to achieve your goals. Building confidence comes from doing it when you don't feel like it. Reps remove all doubt.
I love how much you're smiling while you're saying that.
Because I love the process, man. The process is what helps you gain the reward. It's fulfillment. It's really being able to understand that the process can really, bring the most fulfillment. Because if your motivation is money, then you have to work to get that. If your motivation is a different level of success, you're only going to get there if you truly work for it. And that's what I'm willing to do, man. Put the reps in, and I'll never have doubt because I'm willing to put that work in.
Awesome. Jazz, thank you so much for coming in. I really, really appreciate the conversation and your time, and I wish you all the best in the future.
I appreciate you having me on. This was great.
Cheers, man. Thank you.